G'day guys. By now you've probably seen my video about my least favorite creatures in DST, and yeah, you really had some opinions on that one. So many people had wildly different thoughts to my own, and it's weird because I can't really disagree with most of them. That's part of why I love this game so much. Something I don't like could easily be something you love, and vice versa. I think we all also have unique stories about different creatures in the game that shape our personal opinions. And as hard as it was to pick a top 10 for my least favorite creatures, I think this list is significantly more difficult. What even makes a creature good in the game? Is it the loot, the appearance, the lore, the attack style, the versatility of it? These are all valid metrics, and I think no matter how I rank them, it's just not going to feel 100% correct, even for me, but I tried my best and this is what I ended up with. To kick us off, we've got a relatively new addition to the game, Rictus, or Ricky as it's affectionately known. It's a bit sad that you have to get so far into the game to actually see this creature because it's really cool. The snake-like appearance and toothy grin combined with the sneaky attack style do so much to personify Rictus and give it a vibe that other similar creatures don't quite have. Don't get me wrong, Ricky can be a pain in the ass, and it took me so long to realize that you can't attack it until you stun it in some way, and so it becomes a little bit of a game between the two of you where you have to trick Ricky into coming out of hiding. It's also the first time I've ever considered bringing tooth traps into the caves with me. I love when Clay make you go back and see old items in a new light, and I just think this is one of the coolest creature designs going around. And while it's nice to see that Clay still got it, even in the more recent updates that are a bit maligned at times, you're probably going to notice that most of the creatures on this list have been in the game a while longer. I wanted to include Vault Goats in this list, not only because I think they are deserving of a top 10 spot in their own right, but they definitely go under the radar. The creature itself looks cool, they have absolutely crucial drops that you need for weather panes, and quite unique mechanics. There are surprisingly few creatures in the game that will change the way they behave based on an environmental cue, like how Vault Goats react to getting hit by lightning. And it's a shame because it's such a cool concept. You can also take advantage of that in order to get electric milk to make ice cream, which gives you the equal most sanity of any crockpot dish. And that's without mentioning the frankly OP Vault Goat jelly that Wily can make. Setting up a Vault Goat farm, or 2 or 5, is an integral part of any long-running world, especially one with many people playing, and I think the game would be far poorer without them. Now, I might get some hate for this one, but hear me out, alright? Tallbirds are actually really cool. I know tallbirds get a lot of shit for being annoying to fight, killing their own infant children, and generally looking cursed as fuck, and I agree with those points, but that's also kind of what makes them awesome. There are not many creatures in the game that come close to the level of derangement that these creatures possess. I mean, it's a freaking eyeball with legs, yet somehow after 10 years of DST, the tallbird is still the only creature with a fully interactive life cycle. The progression from adorable, helpless small bird to annoying, hungry teen bird, and finally to the tall bird that will attack its caregiver with zero remorse, is just Don't Starve in a nutshell. You can fight and scrap to feed and protect this creature for 30 days, just for it to turn on you the second it becomes an adult. Incredible gameplay. But on top of that, the tall bird has its own nest that you can move, allowing for tallbird farms or easy farming of small creatures like spiders. It lays giant eggs that count as 2 normal eggs in crockpot dishes, as well as being the main ingredient for tall Scotch eggs, which gives you 150 hunger and 60 health. Need I say more? Making this list has made me realize that Don't Starve Together used to kinda have a thing for eyes. Obviously the tall birds are giant eyeballs, but also the florid postern, the Metheus puzzles, and even the literal moon. And that brings me to the next creature on my list, the lure plant. I don't think anything teaches new players to put their things away better than coming home and seeing them get eaten by large eyeballs. And I personally have been taught this lesson many times. There's something so funny to me about the concept of Venus flytraps, but instead of being for flies, it's for stupid people. Like seeing one piece of meat dangling from a menacing plant in a field of eyeballs is going to encourage me to do anything, but get the fuck out of there. I put it in the same category as the cow plant from The Sims, although lure plants are a lot less likely to eat you alive. In fact, they can be quite handy. You can plant them on turf that doesn't allow eye plant growth for a steady supply of leafy meat, which you can then cook into things like jelly salad, which gives you the equal most sanity of any crockpot dish. Lure plants are also a great way of training your ornery beefalo, or healing with a bat, or even just making a budget rubbish bin. I know the furnaces do this better now, but this and dropping things into the void were all we had for 10 years, alright? Not to mention grass and twig farms with wicker are still awesome. Lure plants can defend you against low-level threats like hounds, and they can even be used to extend the range of ice flingamatics somehow. Is there anything they can't do? Funnily enough, the next creature on my list is kind of an anti-lure plant. Instead of stealing all your items, this little guy puts them away. I'm of course talking about Woebot, who is single-handedly responsible for making the scrappy werepig fight worthwhile. Honestly, I don't have a lot to say about Woebot. It has one job that it does very well and I love it so much. The only negative aspect of Woebot is that there can only be one Woebot. This is somewhat alleviated by playing as Winona and making Winbots, and they're very nice, but they're not Woebot. Maybe I'm just a mushy old WX main that has a soft spot for machinery, but I'm definitely not beating the biased allegations by putting a Clockwork Rook next on my list. There's something about the old school Don't Starve lore that I find really captivating. I'm talking about the Maxwell era, and even before that with the Ancient Civilization, Metheus and whatnot. And the Clockwork creatures are one of the few remnants from that civilization. It's like a gateway into the past almost. I think it's also really interesting that the Ancient Guardian and Clockwork Rooks have a very similar model and attack pattern, at least for the first phase. It's hard to know how the similarity exists, whether the Clockworks were made in the same design as the Guardian or vice versa, or if it's just a pure coincidence. But Maxwell definitely knew the Ancient Guardian personally, and it creates this really interesting relationship. Lore aside, I think the Rooks are very cool creatures in general, and easily the best of the Clockworks. They're kind of funny and clumsy, and you can use them to break things around them, or accidentally hit their allies. They drop gears, which are always good. You can befriend the broken ones in the caves and go on a little rampage if you feel like it. And I also have them to thank for one of the best WX skins in the game. Now, I wanted to exclude NPCs from this list because I think it's kind of boring to have a top 10 that's just Pig King, Pearl, Corvus and co. But they also don't really feel like creatures in the same way that the playable characters and critters also don't feel like creatures, even though they probably are technically. And I put Chester and Hutch in a similar category, but I think they're different enough to qualify here. In fact, Chester has existed long before most of the NPCs and all of the critters were even thought of, being added in the same update as the Icebox, Food Spoilage, and WX. Chester is the OG companion, and after all this time, he's probably still the best. The extra storage is incredibly useful, no matter what stage of the game you're in. Being able to upgrade Chester to have additional storage or icebox capabilities is also a really cool feature that I remember blew my mind when I learned you could do this back in the day. I'm including Hutch in this as well because it's meant to separate the two and they're very similar anyway. Hutch gets their own upgrades a bit easier than Chester, and the Fugu and Music Box versions are both incredible. I don't think I could ever get tired of hearing either of them bouncing down the road behind me. They just bring me so much joy. And while the versatility of Hutch and Chester is commendable, it doesn't hold a candle to that of the simple pig man. It feels weird to have a pig rank at number 3 on my top 10 list, but they just have a resume that stacks up. The pig is one of those creatures that is fundamental to the DNA of Don't Starve. They've been in it since the very beginning, and even in early concepts of the game, and it feels like the Land of the Constant was their home much longer than it was ours. They're in Shipwrecked, they're in The Forge, they're definitely in Hamlet, and along with the Ancients, it seems clear that they had or still have a thriving civilization. Even in DST, they're often seen with patches of berries, carrots, or flowers. They have a king, they have houses and names, which I think are amazing. My personal favorite is Cheeky Chris, and they're largely unperturbed by what the player's doing. Unless you're playing as a monster character, you can befriend pigs and have them help you with chores or fighting. They drop meat or pig skin, both of which are useful resources. You can also feed them a bunch of monster meat to trigger them to turn into a werepig, which is cool in and of itself, but werepigs can be used to get more meat and pig skin. You can take this to the extreme by building elaborate setups of pig houses and catapults, or just fighting them by hand on a full moon to get massive amounts of food. I love that Clay gave us this creature that is capable of so much and just handed us the reins. You can fight them, you can ignore them, you can befriend them, you can farm them, you can make them eat a stack of flowers and shit themselves all day if you want. Creatures like the pig are where the game is at its best. Coming in second place is Krampus, and it's not often that a creature or a drop will be so integral to the game that it changes the meta in the way that Krampus has. Pretty much every person who has played this game will agree that the Krampus sack is one of, if not the most valuable item in the game. And yet Krampus spawns as a punishment for killing too many innocent creatures. I think it's quite beautiful that something intended to be a deterrent can also be used and abused to its absolute limit by players. At this point, there would be dozens of versions of Krampus farms, mostly used as a way of getting the Krampus sack as soon as possible, but I've been known to run them for extra food, charcoal, or even jet feathers. Compared to games in the same genre like Terraria or Minecraft, Don't Starve is fairly lenient when it comes to chance drops, and that makes Krampus with a 1% chance of dropping the sack fairly unique. And besides the sack, I think the concept of having Krampus spawn as a punishment for naughtiness is so incredibly Don't Starve and really fun. Even if I already had a Krampus sack, I still get kinda hyped when I hear the characteristic noise, and I've had so many funny moments with them over the years that they will always hold a special place in my heart. And it's pretty hard to find something that will top that for my number 1 spot. If you're playing along at home, you've probably already got an idea what it's going to be, but I think most of the creatures in the list are fairly interchangeable, to be honest. But for me, I couldn't go past Beefalo. They are quite possibly the most fleshed out creature in the game. They have their own life cycle, which even includes mating season. They can be hunted for meat, wool, and horns. They can be used as an almost impenetrable defense against hound waves or frog rain. And above all of that, you can domesticate and ride them. Beefalo domestication is like its own minigame within the game, with multiple variants of domesticated beefs, unique crockpot dishes, saddles, salt licks, a brush, a bell, Beefalo outfits, and many strategies for how to best go about the process. Beefalo are so beloved in the DST community that I've had to roll back my dedicated server dozens and dozens of times whenever they get killed. It's almost traumatic. I remember when I was playing with Speedy, we used to hold funerals when our Beefalo or Koalefants died, and now there's even an item you can get to resurrect them. I hope in the future they go even further and let us domesticate other animals, or let us collect milk and make cheese and butter and things like that, or maybe a carriage for extra cargo. There's still so much potential here. But that does bring me to the end of my list. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And what would your top 10 look like? Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like and sub if you enjoyed the video, and I'll catch you around. Take care.